Hi, it's Tim from ORACLE-BASE.com. In this video we'll demonstrate Podman's ability to generate and play Kubernetes YAML files. People with Docker experience may wonder if there's an equivalent of Docker Compose for Podman. There is a separate open source project for Podman Compose, but Podman comes with a more interesting solution. Podman can generate a Kubernetes YAML file from an existing pod definition. Those files can be used with Kubernetes, but they can also be used by Podman to recreate the pod. We need a pod to work with. In a previous video we demonstrated a pod made up of a 19C database container and an Oracle REST Data Services container. We'll use that as our starting point. The podman pod list command shows us there's a pod called mypod. The podman ps command shows us the containers related to the pod. We generate a Kubernetes YAML file using the podman generate kube command, telling it which pod we want to generate the file for. The output goes to standard out, but we can use the -f flag to direct it to a file. There are some things to notice about the file contents. The output file is rather verbose, as it includes all the environment variable settings for the containers, even those that are just default values for our build. The ports exposed by the pod are defined as part of the first container's definition. The pod name and container names have the underscore characters removed from them. Here's the definition of the second container. We can create a compact version of this file by removing the environment variables that have default values. We'll also add the underscore characters back to the pod name and container names. Before we can use the file, we need to remove the existing pod. We remove the existing containers using the podman rm command. Then we remove the pod using the podman pod rm command. The podman ps command tells us there are no containers present. To recreate the container, we use the podman play kube command, telling it the name of the file that holds the definition. Here we've used the compact version of the file. The output shows us what's been created. We can see we have a pod again, and all the containers associated with the pod are back. So now we have a definition of the multi-container infrastructure, we can check it into version control. Thanks for watching. As always, there are links to articles containing lots more information about this subject in the description box below.